What is forensic science? A simple introduction. Manhattan, December 4th, 2024, 6:44 a.m. A masked gunman approaches from behind the CEO of one of the most powerful companies in America, right in the heart of Midtown Manhattan, surrounded by hundreds of security cameras, fires twice, and vanishes into Central Park. No fingerprints. No face shown on camera. No eyewitnesses able to make an identification. The entire city of New York is watching, and the killer is long gone. 5 days later, police arrest Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old Ivy League graduate, carrying an unmarked, unserialized ghost gun in his backpack at a McDonald's 300 miles away. Ballistics tests match. DNA testing matches. The evidence seems flawless. And then, his lawyers make a move nobody expected. They don't argue that he is innocent. They argue that the entirety of that evidence must be completely thrown out. Not because the science was wrong, but because the method of collecting it was flawed. As of today, that legal battle is still playing out in a New York courtroom, and the outcome hinges entirely on a concept most people have never heard of: the chain of custody. This is the true nature of forensic science, and it looks nothing like what you see on television. The simplest explanation you will ever hear. Humans can lie, but evidence cannot. A suspect can rehearse their story for weeks. An eyewitness can misremember. A confession can be coerced after hours of pressure in a small room. But blood does not lie about where it fell. A bullet cannot forget the barrel it flew out of. In a legal system built on the principle of the presumption of innocence, where the government must prove you committed a crime beyond a reasonable doubt, forensic science is what transforms that standard from a theoretical principle on paper into something a jury can actually evaluate. At its core, it is the bridge between what actually happened and what someone claims happened. That bridge is built entirely out of physical reality. The word itself, forensic, originates from the Latin forensis, meaning of or before the forum, the court. Science, in service of justice. One crime scene, dozens of sciences. Most people picture forensic science as a single person in a white lab coat running a DNA test. That is like saying a hospital consists of just one doctor with a stethoscope. Forensic science is actually a massive umbrella covering dozens of completely distinct specialties. Forensic pathologists read the victim's body itself like a document. Every bruise, every wound, every broken bone tells a specific story about what happened in the final moments of a human life. Was this person strangled, or did they suffer a heart attack? Did they fall from a height, or were they placed there after death? A forensic pathologist answers those questions with a scalpel. Forensic toxicologists work with the invisible elements inside the body: drugs, poisons, alcohol, and industrial chemicals. There is a terrifying truth. Certain types of poison leave absolutely no obvious trace on the body. No wounds, no bruises, no clear cause of death. Without a toxicological screen, a carefully planned poisoning can look exactly like a natural death, and some killers have relied on that for years, until a toxicologist takes a closer look. Digital forensic examiners work at crime scenes no one can see: your phone, your laptop, your smart home devices. When Mangione was arrested, investigators didn't just seize his weapons, they seized every digital device he carried. Because in 2024, your digital life is a more complete record of your movements than any witness could ever provide. Deleted messages, GPS coordinates, cloud backups you forgot existed. A phone that has been factory reset can still provide investigators with a detailed map of everywhere you went and everyone you talked to. Forensic entomology, the science of using insects to solve crimes, something almost no one expects. Within minutes of death, specific species of blowflies are attracted to a body by chemical signals invisible to humans. They lay eggs on a biological schedule so precise and consistent that the larvae, maggots, on the body act as a living clock. A forensic entomologist can examine those larvae and calculate, with astonishing accuracy, the exact window of time a person died, even if the body isn't discovered until weeks later. What television always gets wrong. Real-world forensic science is excruciatingly slow. A DNA test takes 90 seconds on CSI. It takes 6 to 8 weeks in a real crime lab, sometimes months. Public crime labs across America are so severely backlogged that thousands of cases sit in line waiting for a scientist just to open the evidence bag. The Mangione case involved multiple types of evidence sent to different independent labs, none of which spoke to one another until their individual analyses were complete. That separation is intentional. You do not want the conclusions of a DNA analyst to bias what a fingerprint examiner sees. And the science itself is only a fraction of what must survive scrutiny. Before a result is ever allowed into a courtroom, every sample must survive a rigorous gauntlet. The collection must be entirely uncontaminated. A single skin cell from an investigator accidentally transferred onto a swab can derail an entire analysis. The transportation must preserve the integrity of the sample. Biological evidence degrades rapidly. Heat, humidity, and time are all enemies. The analysis must follow strict laboratory protocols. A single deviation, no matter how small, can be litigated in court. The documentation must be flawless at every single step. Because at trial, a defense attorney will ask, who held this evidence at 3 p.m. on the Tuesday of 3 months ago, and why is there no written record of it? This is why forensic science is not just science. It is science plus procedure plus law, and all three systems must work together flawlessly. The moment any one of them fails, the truth can lose. Not because the facts changed, but because the paperwork broke down. The part that might truly confound you. Forensic science has sent innocent people to prison. Since 1989, DNA evidence has exonerated more than 375 wrongfully convicted individuals in the United States. Some spent over 20 years behind bars. Some were on death row, and many of them were convicted based on forensic evidence itself. Techniques like bite mark analysis, microscopic hair comparison, and bloodstain pattern analysis. These were once presented in court with absolute authority, treated as settled science, only to be debunked later as completely unreliable. An expert witness takes the stand, speaks confidently, and presents charts and diagrams. The jury believes every word. A person goes to prison, and then the entire foundation of that testimony is later exposed as junk science. A few of these discredited techniques were still being used in American courtrooms as recently as the 2010s. The lesson here is not that forensic science is untrustworthy. It is that evidence that sounds scientific and evidence with scientific validity are not the same thing, and the consequences of confusing the two are paid for with real human lives. Forensic science has one ultimate rule above all else. Follow the evidence, never follow a theory. The moment an expert starts with a suspect in mind and looks for scientific evidence to prove it, the entire system collapses, and human beings pay with years of their lives they can never get back. Why you should care about all of this? You will likely never commit a crime. You will likely never be the victim of one. But here is something you almost certainly will do at some point. Watch a case unfold and form an opinion. Follow a trial on the news. Perhaps even sit on a jury. Decide whether, based on what evidence is presented, or what evidence was quietly excluded, someone is guilty or innocent. Most people pass those judgments without understanding how evidence is gathered, whether the science behind it is legitimate, or why a judge might have suppressed the most damning piece of evidence before a jury ever got to see it. That gap in understanding is exactly why this series exists. Because the Mangione case is happening right now. Whether the court will allow the jury to hear that evidence remains an open question. And that open question is the truest description of forensic science you will ever find. It finds the truth. But it does not guarantee that the truth will win. Each episode of this series will center on what happens in the middle. The science, the procedures, the courtroom battles, and the human fates caught in between. From how a crime scene is processed in the first 60 minutes, to how a body is read by a medical examiner, to how a forensic genealogist can track down a killer using a distant relative's DNA database. It all awaits you, and none of it is like what you've seen on TV.